half the SEC sits between like 4 and 14 in the AP poll. 8 ranked teams, 7 games, 5 single-digit spreads. Translation, somebody's playoff hopes die this weekend. Let's talk about it. It's great to be in the SEC. Welcome back to the SEC Recap Podcast, the only place you're getting a college football preview that actually gives you the good stuff, mixing in the analytics with the storylines. We're heading into week 7, and if you've looked at the standings, you already know this is a cluster-breaking Saturday, and that's why I think this slate is so good. Every single one of these games carries meaning, not just in the rankings, but how teams' identities hold up once the numbers start matching reality. So let's run through the 6 big ones here today. Now, normally I kind of go through in the order of the games, starting with the noon games, headed into the night games. I'm just going to touch on them in a different order. Really no particular order, just kind of the order that I had my cards set up here. Appreciate y'all being here on YouTube with us. While you're here, make sure you smash the thumbs up, the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a precap or a recap. What we do on these episodes is talk through the whole slate of games, the SEC games this weekend, and kind of mix in some of our model predictions and some other analytics as well. So we're going to start off with Arkansas at number 12, Tennessee. This game is in Knoxville. This is going to be the 4:15 Eastern kick. I think SEC Network game. And the line, I believe, currently has Tennessee at 12.5. I don't look at that every day. I said I don't bet on sports, so I don't know how much it's moved. Let me get my model up here. This game is what I call chaos versus stability, chaos versus structure. Arkansas has just promoted Bobby Petrino to interim head coach, gutted half the defensive staff during the open date, the bye week. And they're going to walk into Knoxville with Taylor Green, kind of doing everything short of driving the bus. Green has almost 1,400 passing yards, 441 rushing yards. It's basically been the Razorbacks' offensive identity. And when he's on rhythm, the offense is really humming. I mean, they're like a top 10 nationally in total yards. But when he gets contained, it gets pretty ugly pretty fast. I think Petrino, at least everyone's expecting, right? Petrino to kind of bring like this YOLO flavor back to Arkansas, back to the SEC. And a lot of people feel like he's treating this game like an audition for that head coaching job once again. What do you expect? Fake punts, trick plays, four verts, on 2nd and 2, because they have nothing to lose in this game, right? So why not throw everything but the kitchen sink at them and see what works? Now, on the Tennessee side, complete opposite, right? This is a team that knows who it is. They know exactly how to impose that style on you. Now, last year, they were a very good running team, but they had to be a really good running team. They couldn't move the ball downfield. And this game last year, it was in Fayetteville, ended up being a trap game for the Vols. Vols are also coming off of a bye week. Should have been completely prepared, and they roll into Fayetteville, and that defense is throwing a lot of odd fronts at them. And because Tennessee didn't have the ability to move the ball downfield with Nico and those receivers, Arkansas was really able to stop the run game. The offense this year is completely different. Joey Aguilar has this offense running like a well-oiled machine. 1,459 yards, 13 touchdowns, 65% completions, and Chris Brazzell has emerged as a legit all-SEC caliber receiver, potentially number 1 wide receiver in the draft, 531 yards and 7 touchdowns through 6 games. But here's what the numbers say, or through 6 weeks, excuse me. Here's what the numbers say that the box score doesn't. Tennessee ranks about middle of the pack in offensive line yards, but they're top 5 in rushing EPA. So what that means is they're not physically mauling you up front, but they're scheming efficiency. It's Heupel's system doing the heavy lifting, getting linebackers out of gaps, using tempo to kill substitution, forcing safeties into bad angles. Arkansas, on the other hand, is the opposite on the charts. Is one of the teams in line yards and highlight yards, meaning they can create push and explosion, but not really sustainability. Arkansas is thriving on boom bust, especially in the ground game. Their drives are like fireworks. They're really bright, really fast, but they're going to fizzle out because the defense can't reset. And that's where this game breaks down. Arkansas ranks 126th in third down defense. Tennessee ranks 16th in third down offense. You just can't play YOLO ball and get off the field that infrequently if you're Arkansas. Tennessee's not been what we've expected defensively. Last year, they were one of the best run defenses in the country. Again, it was running game and run defense. They've been 118th against the pass, but their success rate allowed per half actually improves late in games. They get a little bit better once they settle in. They start chaotic, settle in, and then they force you into some desperate throws that kind of feed those pressure looks. You got Tyree West and Josh Josephs coming off the edge there. Absolute monsters. They're getting sacks. That's the thing is this offense, while they've not been the greatest against the run, they do apply a lot of pressure on you. They do get to you on the edge, and they harass you and they force you into suppressor situations. So the film matches the math here. Tennessee's tempo and system will overwhelm an Arkansas team that I just don't think has the depth to keep up here. Now Tennessee is really strong on both sides of the ball in the trenches, while Arkansas sits well below that. I think that imbalance is exactly what the PRecap model here picks up. Vols, my model has Tennessee plus 9.8. Now that's not a betting spread. That's the win margin here. My model predicts for the home teams. That plus 9.8 means it's predicting Tennessee to win by close to 10 points. So not quite the 12.2 or 12 and a hook that Vegas has, but a 75% or near 75% win probability. I like those odds. Maybe you're taking Arkansas to cover 12 and a half in more of a shootout style game. Could totally see that. But I think when you flip to the rushing style, Tennessee's very efficient. Like we said, they're scheming success, but they're not bullying. Arkansas lives in that explosive but unstable band. They're really big highlight yards, but a lot lower consistency. Tennessee, I think, is also one of the best closing teams in the SEC. They tend to trend up late. Had the very close overtime game against Georgia, lost that one on the missed kick, but then 2 weeks later go down to Mississippi State and win a close one in overtime there. I'm going with the model on this one. Tennessee, I think by at least 10. 12 is probably good. Don't know if I'd take the hook. 75% win probability. High total projected around 70. So I don't know, man. I mean, this could get wild. Maybe we see like Tennessee 49, Arkansas 31. I don't know that Tennessee's defense is really good enough to keep Arkansas like out of the 20s or below 30. But if the Vols can run for 250, Aguilar is going to throw for 300. Brazel's going to find the end zone a couple of times. I think the Vols are going to get revenge against the Razorbacks and the Petrino YOLO game in Knoxville this Saturday. Let me know what you think, y'all. Are you riding with the Hogs? Let me know in the comments. Are you going Vols? Smash the like, thumbs up. Hit me with the comments. Let's keep on moving. Guys, that's one down. We got some more games to get to. Next up, this is going to be a night game. South Carolina at number 11 LSU. I think this is a vastly overrated, at least in the AP. This is an overrated LSU team. Now, South Carolina's got a lot of struggles of their own. I think the current line is LSU by 9.5. My model clearly thinks it's closer than that. My model is taking LSU with a 72% win probability, but by a lower point margin, just about 4 points. Make this bigger here. LSU to me is one of those teams that you look at and think, the defense looks like an SEC or playoff contender. The offense looks like a lower half G5 work in progress. They're giving up just 12 or so points a game, but they're only scoring 27. The passing game is like fine, but it's not impressing you. Garrett Nussmeier, 1,100 yards, 157, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. There's just no consistency in the run game. They've got the worst rushing attack in the SEC. They're averaging just 104 rushing yards a game. That's 119th nationally. That's, to me, that's criminal with a team or for a team with LSU's line talent. 5 games in, LSU's only attempted 147 rushes. That's bottom 10 in the FBS. And I think that's why their drive stalled. They're predictable. They're one-dimensional. They're too dependent on short fields from that defense. If there is a bright spot, though, it's probably Caden Durham. Like, I think he can change LSU's physicality. 98 yards, 2 touchdowns against South Carolina last year. If he's back, I think, like, he could make a big difference in this game. But again, it's all dependent on that line for me. Here's the truth. South Carolina can be run on. The Gamecocks are allowing 164 rushing yards a game to Power 5 teams and over 16 runs of 10-plus yards in the second half of games. That means their defensive line really wears down. They're kind of a havoc defense, not really like a wear you down defense. Lenora Sellers gives South Carolina some juice at QB when he's healthy. 886 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 66% completions. But LSU defensive front, man, they're tough. They're really nasty. They've got one of the top defensive EPA per rush allowed marks in the SEC. You've got what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm blanking on Weeks. Weeks. Yeah. Desmond Shanklin, right? They can fly to the ball. They've held opponents under 4 yards per play over the last 3 weeks. So I think this is about whether LSU commits to balance. If they run it 30 plus times, LSU could probably cover easily. But like, what does that 30 times look like? Like, are they getting, 3.5 yards per rush? Like, I'm not sure that's the kind of game they want to play. But if not, they might actually let South Carolina hang around into the fourth. I don't know. I think they should run it more. Honestly, I think they need to just take some of the pressure off of Garrett Nussmeier. Just my 2 cents. So our line yards versus adjusted EPA per rush plot. Actually, let me just go ahead and like pop this in here. Let me see if I can. I don't know how big this is going to be or how well this is going to show up. Let me just make this full screen. This is coming right out of my notebook here. So this is line yards per adjusted EPA per rush. So you have like offensive line yards here on the bottom axis. That's basically how much push you're getting on your line. And then you have your adjusted EPA per rush, like basically adjusted for the strength of opponent. LSU and South Carolina are both here, like near the bottom of the league. Neither team, LSU gets the least amount of push from their line. South Carolina has the lowest adjusted EPA per rush, right? So neither one of these teams, great rushing teams, not great offensive lines. South Carolina's defense on defensive line yards allowed per EPA kind of sits in like a pretty leaky upper right pocket here. Okay. Like push, but no control, right? Push, but no control. So these are 2 bad rushing teams, but I trust LSU's defense against the run. If we look at it here, more than I do South Carolina's. If you look at it there, right? LSU's defense, elite stuff rate, low explosives allowed. South Carolina is going to be a little bit more boom bust, right? And so I think that's why, let me go back here. I think that's why the model, what you're looking at here on the precap, favors LSU by 4, because I'm seeing a lower scoring affair. I like the 72% win probability for LSU at home with that defense, given the fact that South Carolina's offense is not good. So I'm going to ride with the model on this one. I think all the expected efficiencies here are going to swing LSU's way. And if they can just get the run game going a little bit, I think they'll cover that 4. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, though. I don't know that either team gets out of the 20s. I'm thinking like maybe something like LSU 24, South Carolina 20. If maybe a late touchdown by LSU or a special teams touchdown, kicker, maybe something weird happens that we see like LSU 27, South Carolina 16, South Carolina 17, something like that. Maybe it does blow open into a 10-point game. But I think Durham and that defensive front get it done. The box score will not be sexy. I don't think this is going to be like a fireworks type game. But I think LSU's control will be pretty obvious after the half. I think they'll stay pretty efficient start to finish in this ball game. All right, that's 2 games down. We got a few more to go. Let's go to one of the big ones. Now, this is a noon kick. This is number 8 Alabama at number 14 Mizzou, noon Eastern time. So this will be 11 a.m. local time Central. I think ABC game. And the line here, not big. I think the line last I looked was Alabama -3. My model likes Alabama by 4. Let me double check. Let me get on and see what the most recent, kind of what it's moved to. 3.5 right now. So it still has Alabama -3.5. So my model really pretty close. Let me see what their projected win probability here is. Oh, interesting. Let me share this. All right, so I'm just looking on ESPN. So ESPN's FPI, 63.4% win probability for Alabama, 36.6% for Mizzou, 3.5-point spread. The PRecap is really close, 60% win probability for Alabama, closer to 40% for Mizzou. So what that means is 60% of the time Alabama's going to win this game. So they're a road favorite, close game. Now, where I think Alabama's going to be susceptible here is the run game. Well, let me work into it a little bit, I guess. This is a big time game, right? This is a monster. This is a top 15 matchup, and there's some elite units on both sides here. I think it's a perfect test for Alabama's biggest flaw, and that is stopping the run game. It's kind of where I was going with that thought just a moment ago. Right now, Alabama is ranked outside the top 100 in yards per carry allowed. They give up over 170 a game to Power 5 teams. They gave up 7 yards per carry in back-to-back wins versus Georgia and Vandy. Now, Vandy, one of the better rushing attacks in the SEC, believe it or not. Those were wins for sure, but they didn't really get tested. I think Mizzou's rushing attack is really going to test them. Let me show you why. Let me share this tab one more time here. I'll make it bigger. Or maybe not. Mizzou has, I think, definitively the best rushing attack in the SEC. Vandy's a little bit more built on explosives, and Arkansas is based around what Taylor Green does from the quarterback position. Mizzou's is a true running back, smack you in the mouth type of rushing attack, okay? And they're the best in the SEC at it. That is where I think Alabama is truly going to get tested. Mizzou's rushing attack is not just good, it is downright lethal. Ahmad Hardy leads the nation with 730 yards and 9 touchdowns. And 551 yards are after contact. He's tough to tackle. That is contact balance and vision operating at a very, very, very high level. And it's not just him. Jamal Roberts averages 7.3 a carry. Bo Prabula adds another layer, 122 scramble yards. That's 5th among SEC quarterbacks. It's going to be a really interesting quarterback duel between Prabula and Ty Simpson. I see it in my charts that I publish on my website and on Twitter. Mizzou's top right, up there in that top right corner, in line yards and rushing EPA, they create push, and they're also converting that push into explosive, efficient runs. Alabama's defense, meanwhile, It's top 5 in pass defense, but it's very middle of the pack against the run. Let me see if I have an example here. Yep. Let me just go back here. So this is the same chart, but basically on the defensive side, right? So we're grouping Alabama more in with like the Tennessee, A&M, Vanderbilt, like this kind of pocket. If we're going to draw a regression line straight through here, so they're more like top and middle of the pack. Or sorry, no, bottom middle. The teams down here, it's actually opposite because you want your defensive to be lower. So like Auburn, Oklahoma, Georgia, those are among your best. So Alabama is actually back middle of the pack in the ground game. Therein lies the matchup to me, right? That gap, I think, is what Missouri is built to exploit. Now, let's talk about Alabama's offense, though. Giving a lot of credit to Mizzou's ground game. Let's talk about what Alabama does well offensively. Ty Simpson, very steady. 1,470 yards, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception, 70% completion rating. Jeremy Bernard has been a guy. They've had 3 guys, Ryan Williams, Bernard. But Alabama's running game, absent, oh my gosh, Jam Miller. Has been kind of flat, like only 126 yards per game, and they're 105th nationally in rush efficiency. I think that's why this becomes a one-possession trade type of game. Mizzou leads the country in time of possession, 37.5 minutes. So they know how to shorten those gaps and dictate pace. And I think if Alabama's front can hold up on early downs, that stat will matter a lot. So I really like my model and how it lines up with what the FPI from ESPN is predicting. I think that 3.5, 4 points, I'd probably take Alabama to cover the 3.5, even though it is on the road, even though Mizzou does really well, what Alabama struggles to defend, and that's run the ball. As far as the over-under, I really don't know. I mean, maybe this is something like Alabama 30, Mizzou 27. But I guess if I'm taking Alabama to cover that 3.5, maybe it's Alabama 31, Mizzou 27. Hardy probably rushes for 150 plus. Pabula will probably manage the clock, but I think Ty Simpson and the receivers, they've really come online. They're very efficient. I think this is going to be a big-time road win. Now, you are coming off Georgia win on the road, very emotional Vandy revenge game at home. You still got to show up to this, even though it is a noon game, but the Tide are riding a lot of momentum. So I do like Alabama in this game. Give me Alabama by 4. I'll take it. Sticking with it. All right. Another one I really like, or I think that's interesting to talk about, and that's number 10 Georgia going to Auburn, Jordan Hare, for a night game. Night games in Auburn, man, that's where the voodoo happens. A lot of voodoo dark magic on that field. I think the line currently was like 3.5, Georgia 3.5. This is a rivalry game. Yeah, still minus 3.5. That total is 46.5. Maybe a little bit lower scoring. Auburn and Georgia, both 2 very good SEC defenses. So we'll work our way into this one. This is a fascinating matchup because both of these teams win the same way. Now, Georgia's done a little bit more winning than Auburn has, but they control tempo and they force physicality. Georgia seems to be back to that old form. You know, Gunnar Stockton has had some highlight throws, but he's not exactly lighting up the scoreboards. He's efficient, right? Over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, interception, close to a 70% completion rating. They're rushing for 200 a game behind Chauncey Bowens. But where Georgia struggles on defensively is like their pass rush. So 7 sacks in 5 games. That's back half of the FBS nationally. They don't have a strong pass rush grade. Not a lot of QB pressures. Now, maybe against any other team, I would be more concerned. But Jackson Arnold, behind Auburn's offensive line, despite Georgia's kind of inability to create a lot of pressure off the edge and rush the passer, doesn't concern me because Auburn's offensive line has been so atrocious. So many sacks. They give up 10 sacks to Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold, he never has time in the pocket. I honestly think, despite Georgia's struggles in this part of the game, I think they're going to get to Jackson Arnold a few times. I mean, when Jackson Arnold's clean, he can attack. I mean, the problem is just pressure. He's got a 35% pressure to sack rate. That's worse than the FBS. This is a strength versus weakness. It's a bad pass rush versus a QB who falls apart under heat. On the opposite side, Auburn's defense is really legit. They're very good. They allow just 88 rushing yards a game, and that's Georgia's strength. And on the line yards allowed, they're one of the best in the SEC. I've shown this for every game. Just go back and show it here one more time. This is the defensive chart. Auburn is the best. They're the best in the SEC. That's inarguable from an efficiency standpoint in defensive rushing EPA allowed and offensive line push allowed. They're the best at it. Georgia's very, very good. Oklahoma's very, very good. Texas A&M, LSU, you can also maybe kind of put on the fringe of that category. Auburn's the best. No doubt about it. So it's all going to be about discipline and gap control. Now, Georgia's defense, like we talked about them, very good. They suffocate the run, 82 yards allowed per game. They've had a lot of success in recent years against this Auburn team. But if there is a glimmer of hope for Auburn, I think it's special teams and field position, maybe creating a turnover with the defense. Field position could swing this game. With this being a 3.5-point game, I could see something weird happening for Auburn at night down on the plains. But I just can't pick it, man. I'm not picking this game in a rivalry game, even though Georgia's on the road. I can't pick it. 77.5% win probability from the precap here is just too big for me to ignore the way this plays out. My model sees it a little bit wider than the 3.5. Precap is at minus 5.3. So I'm thinking Georgia by 6. But a low scoring game. I mean, let's take a look at like Georgia 24, Auburn 17. I think Auburn just in general this year is going to struggle to score more than 20 points against SEC teams or just Power 4 teams in general. This is going to be physical, old school SEC ball. Georgia bleeds the clock. Bounce scores late. Georgia escapes Jordan Hare yet again. Stamp it, book it. We're riding with the precap. We got a couple more, y'all. Texas versus number 6, Oklahoma. Really quick, though, before we get into this one, appreciate y'all tuning in here on YouTube. Like I said, if you appreciate the content, like what we do, try to mix in a little bit more of the analytics content, not so much just personnel talking points. Just like to look at the hard data of what happens on the field and how it impacts the games. Of course, give you the model predictions. It's always fun. I do all this for free. I do all this on my own time. I don't do ad reads on this podcast. The only thing I do is I sell a few t-shirts on my merch store. I'm rocking my Big Doink Energy tee here today on the podcast, but it's all SEC merch. I've got my new Saturdays collection. I'm featuring the Oklahoma stuff right there, but scan that QR code. I've got something for every single team. Really cool stuff. So people have already bought it, been getting a lot of good feedback. Bought some for myself, the wife, some of my friends have bought some. Really, really appreciate that. It just goes to support what I do, paying for website hosting and just a little bit of the time that I put into doing this. So SEC, bonfire.com/store/SEC recap, t-shirts, long sleeve, hoodies. Guys, it's almost fall, which means it's bonfire season. So check out the SEC recap store at bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. That link is in the description. And if you don't want to buy a t-shirt, fine, man, drop a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Everything goes a long way. All right. Texas OU, the Red River rivalry afternoon game, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. So that's going to be 2:30, I think, local kick. And this is a close one. So what we have is basically a reeling Texas team against a really good number 6 Oklahoma, but minus John Mateer. So what does that do for this game? Vegas likes OU, and basically a coin flip. They've got OU at minus 1.5. My model likes Texas by 1.5. And maybe that's a little bit of the no John Mateer factor. Let's dive into it. Preseason, this was supposed to be the best Red River matchup in 20 years, right? Texas is a preseason number 1 team. Oklahoma, ton of hype. John Mateer looking amazing through the first couple weeks of the season. Instead, this has turned into an absolute head scratcher. Texas fell apart against Florida. Oklahoma's John Mateer is not in this game. But don't sleep on the Sooners in this one. They've got one of the best defenses in the country, not just the SEC. 193 yards allowed, 7.2 points per game. They rank top 2 nationally in both pass and rush defense. There's a lot of questions on offense for both of these teams, right? On the Texas side, Arch Manning, he's shown flashes, but 5 interceptions, too many forced scrambles tells you that he's pressing. He's also the team's leading rusher, and that's just not sustainable against this OU front. I've shown you the graphic. Let me show it to you one more time. Look how good OU is down here in the bottom left. Very, very good against the run, right? Not allowing a lot of offensive line push, not allowing a lot of yards on the ground. One of the best teams, not just in the SEC, but in the country. Okay. Now, defensively, Texas can hang. It's a super talented Texas defense. They're top 15 nationally. They give up just 12 points a game, but their efficiency splits by half kind of show the issue. They start really strong and then they fade. OU is kind of the reverse. They maybe start a little bit slower, but then finish really, really strong. And even without Mateer, Michael Hawkins Jr., he's been serviceable. I think 162 yards, 3 touchdowns last week. I think their offense just needs to complement what the defense is doing. Where am I at with the pre-cap here? Yeah. So on the EPA per play aspect of it, OU's defense is negative. So they take expected points away from opponents. That's elite. Texas already doesn't have a high EPA on any aspect, rushing game, ground game, any of that. I think this is going to feel more like an NFL game. This is going to be low scoring. This is going to be very physical. This is going to be decided by field position and turnovers. Texas is very middle of the pack in terms of explosivity and consistency. Oklahoma is a little bit lower on the explosive meter, but they're very steady. They convert third downs well. Field position, I think, is where OU wins out. They create, have some of the best starting field position for the defense in the nation. They force opponents to start inside of their own 25 on 60% of their drives. And that's where, one of the things the pre-cap looks at is field position, the field position delta in favor of Oklahoma. That's why it's negative, because Oklahoma, I think, is the away team. Even though this is a neutral site game, it still predicts for Texas as the home team. But the model understands that it is neutral site. But this is a big delta for Oklahoma in that field position battle. So that's what's driving this razor thin margin from the pre-cap. The model still likes Texas by 1.5, 57.7 win probability. Guys, this is one of the few model runs this year. I truly don't know. With it being a neutral site game, I think both fan bases obviously going to be represented really well. Oklahoma, no John Mateer, Arch Manning, not great. 2 really good, talented defenses. Flip a coin, man. Flip a coin. I don't have a strong lean. Vegas likes Oklahoma. I like Texas. I think whichever way this game's plays out, we're looking at like a 23-20 score. So pick which one you want to go with. Oklahoma 23, Texas 20, Texas 23, Oklahoma 20. I may be a little bit more inclined to actually ride with Oklahoma to go against the model on this rare occasion. But again, it's a lean, not a lock for me. I think the Sooners defense is going to make Arch miserable. That Red River momentum is going to swing maybe to the north side of the state line this Saturday. Yeah, screw it. Give me the Sooners. Boomer Sooner, baby. Hey, if there's any Sooners watching this, boom, there's your hoodie on the Bonfire store. Go buy one. Bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. Your boy's going for the Sooners this week. All right, guys, we got one more game. Appreciate y'all tuning in here on a Wednesday afternoon. Final game we're going to cover, Texas A&M hosting Florida Gators, coming off a big win versus Texas in the Swamp. This is going to be one of the final games of the evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time kick on ESPN. The line currently, I think, 7.5. Yeah, 7.5, over under 46.5. Let's break down what the model sees in this one. Now, Gators riding high. Is Billy Napier safe? I don't know. I certainly didn't pick Texas to lose in the Swamp last week. I don't know who did. Certainly didn't see many people calling for that. That was a surprise to me. Don't think the Gators are going to be so lucky 2 weeks in a row on the road. So I think this is where balance is going to meet some volatility. Texas A&M 5-0. They've been one of the most complete teams in the country from an analytics standpoint. I think eye test on the field too, it really showed up last week against Mississippi State. They dominated State. They ranked top 25 in both offense and defense, and their EPA per rush is among top 3 in the SEC. And that is because their offensive line is nasty. They're top 3 in offensive line yards and success rate per rush. They're very, very good. They're also very, very good against the rush. Marcel Reed has 1,256 yards, 11 touchdowns. Decision-making has elevated every single week. Mario Craver, 557 yards. Gives them a true vertical threat. Le'Veon Moss, obviously 343, 5 tutties, is the steady hammer. The real star for A&M has been the defense. Cassius Howell, 7 sacks already. That's more than 4 entire SEC defenses. A&M's front has allowed 1 offensive touchdown in each of their SEC games, and they're generating pressure on 40% of opposing dropbacks. That is going to be an absolute nightmare for DJ Lagway, who I still don't think is playing 100% healthy. He's been tough, 988 yards, 7 touchdowns, but 7 picks. Texas couldn't get pressure on him last week. A&M's going to get pressure on him. Trust me, A&M is going to get pressure on them. Maybe one of the last times I'll show this chart here. But there's A&M right there. Very, very good. Very, very good line yards per rush. Now, I don't have like a havoc chart. Maybe I need to make that, though. Need to make a havoc chart. But A&M down here near the bottom right in the trenches category, meaning they don't allow a lot on defense and they push a lot on offense. Auburn's still one of the best on both sides, but A&M, one of the strongest in not only the SEC, but in the FBS in the trenches. They're a true trench team. Lagway's saving grace is going to be Dallas Wilson, who really came on last week. Wide receiver, starting to break out. But I don't think he's going to have a lot of time to find him. I really don't. Florida's defense is solid, top 25 nationally, but the mismatch here is that trench depth. Like I mentioned, A&M starts drives on average near their own 33. Florida's defensive success tends to crater late in second halves. If Florida can't generate turnovers early, this game's going to get out of hand. We saw Mississippi State play A&M very close for a half last week. And then A&M blew it wide open. That's where you see the strength in the trenches start to pull away when there's a real imbalance. Your ones can keep it close for a half, but they're just going to wear down, and A&M's got a lot of depth. They're very balanced. They control both fronts. A&M, very strong offensive line push for the run game. Florida's offensive line is almost the inverse. They're more explosive, but they get stuffed way too often. Aggies very, very consistent start to finish. I think Gators collapse late here, and you're going to get exactly what our pre-cap model projects. A&M, very strong win probability, 83.7%. And my model likes, it's a little tighter than the 7.5 that Vegas gets them. So maybe a lower scoring affair. I do think A&M probably gets to 30. I'm thinking maybe Texas A&M 31, Florida 17. Just offensively, I think DJ Lagway is going to struggle too much. Not going to be able to generate enough explosives. Marcel Reed's precision, Howell's disruption, Elko's offensive defensive balance is going to keep A&M firmly in the SEC title conversation and, of course, college football playoff conversation. Guys, there you have it. The cluster breaker, week 7. We're going to see who breaks away. Somebody's playoff hopes are dying this weekend. Who's it going to be? Let me know in the comments. Every contender here is about to get punched in the mouth. And by Sunday, we're going to know who is real. Mizzou second game, A&M defense, good control, metrics that separate the top tier from the pretenders. Hey, if you enjoyed these breakdowns, drop your score predictions in the comments. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we will see you Sunday for the recap and our updated SEC power rankings. That's the SEC recap. See y'all after kickoff. Peace.